So while everybody's like scratching their nuts and scratching their heads on like how in the world did this small little indie title from a small developer out of Australia was able to muster up the licenses for all the music that's in the game, and that requires a lot of money, and so that is out of the scope and reach of a small indie studio. And then you have to question like how come this game is getting so many like tens and 100s across the board from every single major publication, mainstream publication, when it comes to the video game and gaming journalism overall. And people aren't asking the right questions, and a lot of it is due to the fact that people are afraid to ask these questions because they feel uncomfortable because of certain people that we're not allowed to criticize. And this is not criticizing, this is just actually digging deep, going deep, that's what she said, and connecting the dots, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, and you just have to dig a little deeper. Now, I'm not going to express my opinions about this game. I will not be getting this game. I will continue to exercise my right to opt out, and sometimes that's called boycotting. Sometimes that's called just like, now players, gamers are actually considered gamers and players just by watching a playthrough. But Mixtape, all right. Now, Mixtape just came out last week, and it's getting rave reviews across the board. And this is by a small developer, Beethoven and Dinosaur. I went to the website. All they have is just a JPEG, a Beethoven and a dinosaur, and that's it. No other information is available on that. But if we dig a little deeper, now who published the game, right? Because the developer, they actually made the game, but people aren't pointing the right fingers. And the publisher behind this is Annapurna Interactive. And you might ask yourself, who is Annapurna Interactive and how did they come about? Now, they've been around for 10 years. And Annapurna Interactive is actually part of Annapurna Pictures. Annapurna Pictures was established in 2011 by Megan Ellison. And who is Megan Ellison? Well, Megan Ellison is none other than the daughter of multi-mega billionaire Larry Ellison, who is, quote, the founder. And I say that in quotes because that is many books have been written on this topic. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but as far as we know, the kosher version, right, is Larry Ellison is the founder of Oracle, right? And I'm going to go a little deeper into Oracle right now. And so Megan Ellison, she's also known as the CEO of, like I said, Annapurna Pictures, and one of her first films, one of her first big Hollywood blockbuster and Academy Award nominated films was a film called, it was called Zero Dark 30. I had it bookmarked here. Just give me a second. Here it is. So Zero Dark 30 was directed by Catherine Bigelow. I think I went to the theaters to see this because everything CIA and like Special Forces and Metal Gear Solid, all that kind of shit, spycraft. I love that, right? And so this was actually a very big deal. But it turns out, I'm not going to go. Actually, should I talk about this? Well, anyways, at the end of the day, Zero Dark 30 was actually co-produced, and you see her on the side by Megan Ellison through her company called Allison Entertainment. Annapurna Pictures, right? And so let's keep it real. Let's go back to Mixtape. Mixtape was just produced and or published by Annapurna Interactive, right? But also, I want to point out that the reason why people can't understand is how is this game getting like rave reviews and hundreds and tens? It's because of the merger. And what merger may I be talking about? And who is this? This is David Ellison. David Ellison is the son of Larry Ellison. And who is David Ellison, guys? David Ellison is the CEO and chairman of Paramount Pictures. And now, as you already know, the merger between Warner Brothers and Paramount, and it's an accumulation of many, many assets across the board. One of them is also CBS Entertainment, CBS News, and many, many like properties and pictures and even video game titles and IPs that are going to fall under this umbrella of, I think they're calling it Paramount. I forget what they're calling it now, but I think it's already listed. It says here, yes, Paramount Skydance. And then you have to ask yourself, holy shit, like who is Skydance? And you have to understand, Skydance Entertainment and Annapurna Pictures were heavily funded by Larry Ellison because He's actually was worth here we go. He was worth, and this is Forbes magazine, $242 billion. But because of the recent AI boom, it says here Larry Ellison is a chairman, CTO, and co-founder of software giant Oracle, right? But it says here that he became the first person in September of 2025. He became the second person ever worth more than $400 billion thanks to the AI-driven boom in Oracle's stock price. And if you scroll down a little bit more, it says Ellison never finished college. He started out building databases for the CIA. Isn't that interesting, right? And then daughter Megan has financed films such as Zero Dark 30 and American Hustle. Son David produced mainstream movies like Terminator and Mission Impossible, and that whole franchise. So you have to understand now that David Ellison, the son, is now a major player, if not probably the most powerful person in Hollywood right now. And like he's now like a one-man media giant through the funding of his father 20 years ago. And remember, you have to understand, David Ellison was only 25 years old when daddy bought him that company. Why? Because I'll show you right now. Check this out. David Ellison, he actually started out as an actor, and one of his first films, it says here, filmography, was this movie called Flyboys, right? Starring James Franco and a couple other actors, right? And so this movie flopped so bad, but Larry Ellison actually funded and produced this film. And so like when David saw that, hey, maybe acting is not in the cards for me, let me just go ahead and start, producing films. That's when Skydance really, really took off. So I'm just trying to paint this picture as to who the Ellisons are and how powerful the Ellisons are right now in the world of Hollywood. David Ellison, he's in charge more of like big Hollywood blockbusters that make a lot of money. In the case of Megan Ellison, she's like the artsy fartsy, most of the games are queer coded. Most of the films are queer coded, right? And so a lot of her films lose a lot of money, but are noticed in the eyes of the Academy. So a lot of her films, props to her production company and the titles that they choose. A lot of the films, like I said, lose money, but gain a lot of respect as far as like, Oscar award season. And so you're going to see Mixtape through the power of her brother and her father, and now their overall influence. And remember, the deal isn't gone through yet, but it's going to go through because of the intimate connection that they have with the Trump administration. Because, one hand washes the other. You do me a favor, I do you a favor. And so the Trump administration is going to actually spearhead that deal to go through. And it's kind of embarrassing that, the president of the United States was actually pushing for the Ellisons to win that deal, right? And so like they got it. So now it's all a matter of phone calls and calling the FCC, the SEC, the Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Trade. Everybody involved, because it still has to pass because there's a lot of red tape that needs to be pushed through in order for the deal to go through. But the deal is going to go through. And why do I talk about all this, right? And the reason why is because I had a thing here. Here we go. Look. So this is now the umbrella. This is the film studios properties that they're now going to be owning through the merger and this acquisition, right? So Paramount Pictures, obviously, David Ellison is the CEO of Paramount Pictures. He has been for actually a couple of years now, right? And so Warner Brothers Pictures, New Line Cinema, DC Studios, think about what that means as far as like video game IPs as well. And then you have Castle Rock Entertainment, Warner Brothers Animation, Paramount Animation, Nickelodeon Movies, Skydance Media. Skydance Media is actually David Ellison's production company. And in streaming platforms, Paramount Pictures Plus, Max, HBO Max, Pluto TV, Discovery Plus, BET Plus. And they also own CBS and the CW, and through CBS News. And so we're talking about a vast empire of media, and it's becoming smaller and smaller with fewer people now controlling all of media and then all of like the news and information that we read. And then also HBO, Showtime, Cinemax, right? And so the cable network, entertainment networks is absolutely vast. Look at this, guys. We're talking about MTV, VH1. So think about the advertising, the commercial, the access journalism that we're talking about here, right? News divisions, CNN, it goes on and on. CBS Sports, TNT, NFL, NBA, through digital rights, and streaming rights. I mean, it's endless. So now here's where we go on the Warner Brothers HBO side. You have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Joker. So we're talking about all of those games. Do you understand? And so there was another list of right here. This is what they once the deal goes through. This is what they're going to acquire: Rocksteady, NetherRealm, WB Games Montreal. You have TT Games, Avalanche Studios, and Portkey Games. And in major franchises are Mortal Kombat, Batman Arkham, Hogwarts Legacy, Lego. Think about the Lego Batman that's coming out right now. That's coming out in what, in a couple weeks or so, right? And then you have DC Games and the Game of Thrones license. So already they have their foot in the door within gaming, right? And so, like I said, sister and brother together. Now that sister has Annapurna Interactive, she could just rely on her brother, make just a couple of phone calls, and just borrow some of these licenses here that you see here. The Mortal Kombats, the Batman Arkham, maybe do crossovers. And so that's why you see all the hundreds. Let's actually get out of here. There's so much more that I want to go through, right? But all the hundreds and the tens, and it's just like everybody, they know which way the wind is blowing. They're afraid to be critical because they know that a monster within media, within network television, within cable, within IPs and studios. And think about everybody is just now afraid to criticize because think about this. This is being pushed by Larry Ellison's daughter, bro. And then forget about Beethoven and Dinosaur, the developer. Like all eyes are on like who is pushing this? Who has the money? There's no way that, excuse me, a small developer can afford, all these lavish gift boxes that were sent out to hand-picked like content creators. And it's time to start calling out these content creators who will bend over and take it up the what just for a couple of bucks, bro. Just to gaslight the entire like gaming industry. And like I said, remember back in 2014 when Gamergate happened, it was basically uppercuts and sidekicks over the internet, right? It was like making videos and people getting canceled. And that's when the cancel culture started. And they realized they're like, look, we can't win against the internet. And that's why there's so many rules and regulations and all these, laws trying to be passed to regulate the internet because like, guys, we're like a wildfire, dude. We can't be contained. You understand? And so they realized that they couldn't win that 2014 Gamergate 1 fight. So now they're like, no, we can't go do it like this. We have to now infiltrate our agenda and infiltrate the industry through property, through IPs, and let's start making our own games. And let's start, instead of like, pressuring these studios to enforce DEI, because that's what Gamergate has become. Gamergate has actually transformed into this whole DEI nonsense. And now not only do they own those three initials, right, but they're actually actively acting on it and making these games like, for example, Mixtape, right? And that's just my overall, I'm not going to go into my opinion about Mixtape, but that's just my overall arch of trying to tie all these things. And so like when you see like IGN you have to understand also that, IGN, GameStop and all these other publications, guys, if you don't interact with them, and if you, for example, if you stop tagging them in tweets, if you stop, for example, even like engaging with their tweets, they don't care. Right? Because they know that you hate them. But as long as you engage with them, I mean, think about it. Almost all of their videos on YouTube get ratioed into oblivion, but they don't care. It's like it's engagement. And ever since, YouTube changed the algorithm like 5, 6, 7 years ago to where now it's more like they even encourage downvoting. They don't care. The fact that they remove the downvote button, they don't care, dude, because they know that there's plugins. Like Google can easily like kill switch that return YouTube's dislike button. They can do that, but they leave it in there because it's all engagement. It's watch hours. Remember, it's watch hours, guys. And so we have to start taking a stance. And I'm actually glad that people are taking the stance and not buying, because they peaked at, let's actually let's look at this here. All right, here we go. Right now they're sitting at 837 players, 24-hour peak of 1395 and all-time peak of 2245. But here's the kicker though. They had 2200 players, correct? Now I'm going to go back to the Steam page, and they had, and I can tell you right now that they deleted a bunch of reviews when, I believe, late last night, early this morning, it started making the rounds on X, and there were over 2,500 reviews. And people are like, well, how can that be possible? Because you have to actually, own the game to review the game, right? But at the same time, there was only a peak of 2,200. So there are more reviews than players. So this game is being astroturfed. And that's what we call, some people are saying, oh, it's an industry plant. This is astroturf. Well, whatever, right? At the end of the day, people that say, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want politics in my game. So we don't have to talk about politics. You're the dummy, because politics is heavily, heavily infused now within the Western gaming industry. And that's why, a lot of good European studios, all of China, all of Korea, all of Japanese studios, even though they themselves are starting to get in Japan, are starting to get infiltrated by these like advisory boards and shit to, DEI boards and stuff. So that's what we have to come together and just like exercise your boycott, guys. Exercise your boycott, refuse to, just sit out, refuse to take part, and don't engage with the with people that are trying to push forward this agenda that gaming is this now. This is not gaming, guys. This is a failed art house, theater kids, grew up privileged. Mommy and daddy had everything and they gave you everything. That's what this is coming off as. But we see that in show business. We see that we see that everywhere, right? And so, that's my analysis of where Mixtape is getting their money from. The Ellisons and Project Stargate.
Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing